We're concerned because most of the people in our community are not aware that this cut is coming. I can tell you on Saturday we were out here giving out flyers. Most people do not understand, first of all, even though recipients, that the cut is coming. Number two, they don't understand the pantries will not be able to sustain them, to help them. This is a real cut. Seniors and mothers with children, single parents, are going to be hit pretty hard. I'm reading about taking action. We're going to have another 2 more hearings, and what we're leading to is to go to Washington, D.C. and to let Mr. Obama, that's the man who can put a stop to this, at least we believe so, put a stop to the cuts. Again, this is not just an idea about we're going to give you information, but you're going to receive the best and the freshest information on the Farm Bill and on the food stamp issue. But remember, we want you to get ready because we're going to go to Washington, D.C. You don't have to pay for the bus, you don't have to pay for lunch.
Most people consider the beginning of the modern Farm Bill that it started with an act called the Agricultural Adjustment Act in 1933. It was created during the Great Depression to address poverty, soil erosion, and control commodity prices. I have a slide with farmers. Farmers would basically get checks. They would get payments to not farm a certain percentage of their land. So early on, the Farm Bill was supposed to help farmers make money, conserve land, and try to protect from soil erosion. And over the years, a lot of things have started to change and other acts were added to the Farm Bill. So over the years, the Farm Bill has grown into a massive package of federal legislation to set food and Farm Bill policy in America. The Food and Farm Bill influences the cost and availability of food in our communities, what ends up on our plates at home, and what farmers grow. This Farm Bill, the Senate version of this Farm Bill has 12 titles. The one we're going to focus on today and talk a lot about is Title IV, which is the nutrition title. SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, is in this title. There's other programs that affect nutrition, and they are in other titles, but the main portion, a big chunk of it is nutrition, and a big chunk of the nutrition title is the SNAP funding. Who receives SNAP benefits? Who are the majority of recipients of SNAP benefits? And those are actually our most vulnerable residents in our communities, kids and seniors. And the need is growing. I'm going to take a quick note to mention that right now, there are certain, right now with SNAP, as long as people need it, the money goes in, so the need is growing and the amount of SNAP funding has increased. In the House, there are many conservatives that are looking to turn this, that title into a block grant, and what that means is that there would be a set amount of funding for SNAP, and once that funding is met, no one would receive any more benefits. It would not increase in funding. So when we're talking about the cuts, there's many different, there's a few cuts that are coming, but one of those scary amendments that you kind of have to think about when you're looking is not turning, when you're calling your senators, is telling them you don't want amendments that are trying to encourage to turn SNAP into a block grant. We need to protect SNAP, whether or not you receive SNAP or not. It's important for the community, for everyone. Cuts to SNAP can force families with kids to skip meals, buy cheap, unhealthy food, just to stretch their dollar. With the cuts that people are talking about right now, the House and Senate cuts, those cuts can easily lead to some families running out of money in the third week of the month to cover the food. 3 easy steps to connect to your senator. You dial the switchboard, ask for your senator, introduce yourself, and tell them what amendments you're for and what amendments you're against. And I added some extra information about some suggested amendments that, for instance, like our Senator, Senator Gillibrand, she's on the Senate Agriculture Committee. She proposed an amendment to restore funding for SNAP. So I had a little information on there. I just want people to realize it's very easy to contact and make a difference. People feel that, what does it matter? I'm just one voice, but one voice plus another voice plus a community, this affects us on a daily basis. This is our food, this is our livelihood, these are our kids, these are our parents, our grandparents. These are our lives too. We want to make sure that food is there for everyone, and all you really have to do is spread the word and make some phone calls.
So it's very important that we're aware of where the 1% is trying to give our money to. When we talk about the Farm Bill, and we talk about agriculture and how much we spend or how much we cut, we're also talking about, as Julio mentioned, how much we're giving to the banks, how much we're sending to Iraq and Afghanistan. So we're not talking about, oh, do I eat, beans or rice? We're talking about, do we eat food or do we go kill people? And that's the broader political overview I would bring forward. And I would mention, and I think it's understood, it's not just the Republicans. It's the Republicans and the Democrats together that are stealing from us. Every attempt possible to give money to big agriculture, like you heard, and take money from us through food stamp cuts or through cutting small farmer loans or new immigrant farmer development projects, that comes right out of our pockets. That's our money. And we cannot be deluded to think that it's just the Republicans. In fact, in 2010, Senator Gillibrand voted to cut food stamps $13 billion. And now, thanks to enormous pressure from many people here today, she's working to restore cuts for $4.45 billion. But we cannot make her a hero. We cannot go along with Democrats against the Republicans. We have to hold them accountable. She voted to cut $13 billion. Now she wants to restore $4.5 billion. What about the other $13 billion? We have other options to empower ourselves. One of the things that have been going on is trying to destroy our land base. Bloomberg and Giuliani and everybody, they've been trying to develop all open spaces in our community. So if you could take a moment to fill out this postcard, we're working in a coalition to pass a law to preserve all community gardens. That's a place of local empowerment where people like us can get together and talk and share issues of concern, as well as actually grow our own food. So I want to implore you to sign that postcard, and if you want more, let us know. So that's a good thing. When we talk about distributing our money, whether it's federal tax credits, whether it's insurance subsidies for agriculture crops that they get paid off for, or subsidizing corporations in our neighborhood, you might have heard about Fresh Direct. Fresh Direct is a company that has mostly been delivering food to rich people throughout the city. They pollute our streets, they idle their trucks, they pay their workers $8 an hour, and Bloomberg and Cuomo are trying to give them $130 million of our money to take over our South Bronx waterfront. That is not a wise food policy, that is not a wise land use decision. So we shared this flyer with you. Just think of all the local farmers, all the local community gardens, all the little green job incubators that we can start with $130 million. So that's why we want to stop Fresh Direct in the South Bronx. Now, you heard about the agriculture, the corporate act. My final point is about the South Bronx CSA. We heard about where the money, they're taking from cuts of food stamps and trying to give money to the soybean, the wheat, the corn, the ethanol crops. They're burning food for fuel. They're burning corn for fuel, and they're calling it green fuel. It is not green fuel. They're taking food and burning it. It's absolutely insane. Instead of funding local immigrant farmers. For example, our South Bronx CSA farmer, Sergio Nolasco, he graduated from a Grow NYC project, in part funded from the federal government from the Farm Bill in 2008, which was a very minuscule portion of that funding, but it's an example of a successful project where local immigrant farmers, still with the heritage of the countries they're coming from, where they were probably farming until the year they came here because of whatever reason, NAFTA or whatever displaced them, and they get money to start their own farm. The South Bronx CSA has been in existence for 9 years. We've been working with Sergio for a number of those years. He's an hour away from New York City and every week provides organic food for all of us. So the one thing we can all do today is join the South Bronx CSA. I didn't go into what a CSA is. Does anyone know what a community supported agriculture project is?
Of course.
Yes.
Yes.
Tell us.
Community support agriculture is a way to bring more healthy and affordable and economy food to the community from our local agriculture. We also do that at the Leader College Second Partner.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah,
So,
that's one of them.
so there's a big example. So that's something we can all do tomorrow. We have a flyer in English and Spanish. If you can't sign up online, you can call us and we'll walk you through the process. The South Bronx CSA has been in existence for 9 years. You come every Wednesday starting June 20th to 141st Street and Brook Avenue. There's others throughout the city. We got started thanks to Just Food, another citywide organization working on food justice issues. You can pay a sliding scale based on your income. So if you make $60,000 a year, you pay $550 for the whole season. If you're on food stamps, EBT, we've been accepting EBT for years, although Fresh Direct doesn't even accept EBT, although they said they do. You pay $9 a week for enough organic food for 2 to 3 people or more in your family. It's very affordable, it's very fun. You go to a community garden, you meet and connect with your neighbors, and we get to talk more about these issues. So, in conclusion, and I don't know if we'll take questions after or not, I encourage you all, if you can't join the South Bronx CSA, tell someone about it. We have a presentation for your tenant organization, and we also do deliveries to senior citizen centers. Thank you very much.
There we go.
Okay, take it now? Okay, thank you.
Does that apply to SSI, both versions?
And how so?
If you're using SSI,
Yeah.
supplement or social,
Yes.
do you still pay the same amount?
It's all based on income, so I would presume that would be the under $20,000 a year rate, and the fees are actually on the flyer. So whether you're on SSI, if you're getting Medicare, whatever resources, and we're also open to discussion if you have issues. We wanted to make it affordable for everyone. The higher income people in our community pay more, and therefore they subsidize the people that don't have as much. So join us.
Tons of titles, there are tons of sections within the Farm Bill. But one of them, which I think is really important to focus on, is the one called the nutrition title. And under that nutrition title, funding levels for food stamps is determined. And so there are a couple of things happening right now. The Farm Bill, as you said, comes up for reauthorization every 5 years. And so, of course, it's a very political piece of legislation. There's a lot of money that's tied to this legislation, big farmers and lobbyists and campaign contributions. It runs the gamut. So, needless to say, this is a very important issue. We all need to be aware of how it affects our daily lives. Right now, there are a few different proposals related to the Farm Bill that could positively or negatively affect all of our daily lives. Republicans and Democrats have both proposed cuts to the food stamp program. The Republican cut is much more drastic than the Democrat cut, but we at the New York City Coalition Against Hunger, and I'm sure all of you all can agree, no cut is acceptable. And so, just to give you an example, Democrat Debbie Stabenow, who represents Michigan, I think that's also very interesting. You have a Democrat leader in the Senate who sits on the Agriculture Committee, and she actually proposed a $4.5 billion cut to food stamps. Now, she represents Michigan. There's not a lot of rich people in Michigan. And it also has Detroit, which is suffering drastically economically. The transportation jobs and the economic development has gone way downhill. And so we were disappointed and still are disappointed that Senator Stabenow would propose to cut a nutrition program that we know so many people in her state benefit from. So that brings us to Senator Gillibrand. Senator Gillibrand is another Democrat who sits on the same committee. And, while it does not reverse the $13 million in cuts that happened a few years ago, we think that she was very courageous in, first of all, only being a senator for only 3 years, but also standing up to a very powerful Democrat female senator and saying, I will not vote on a bill that has any cuts to SNAP. So let me go into this $4.5 billion proposed cut to SNAP proposed by Senator Stabenow, the Democrat. Her cut, she calls it not a cut, she calls it closing a loophole. And I know that in politics and debates, we're used to people referring to these loopholes. What she is proposing is to basically make it so that people who get LIHEAP, which is, some people get more than others, some people get $1 in LIHEAP, some people get $10, $20, $100. LIHEAP is that funding from the government to help people afford their utilities. Heating, especially in the winter. Utilities are expensive, and when you're dealing with buying food and other necessities, utilities can be a huge burden. And so there is money available to assist people with paying their heating bills. The way it works right now is funding through LIHEAP is also connected to receiving food stamps. So if you get any LIHEAP benefit, even if it's $1 in LIHEAP, which I know seems sort of counterintuitive, but you have to get something. It's almost like $1 means that you're in LIHEAP, and if you get LIHEAP, then all of a sudden that increases the amount of food stamps you get. So you follow me here? Even though we know that $1 won't pay your Con Edison bill, if you are in the system as receiving any amount of LIHEAP, then it automatically triggers your eligibility to get more food stamps. She wants to take away that program. She wants to take away how those programs work together. She wants to make it so that you getting LIHEAP won't necessarily increase your food stamp benefit. So that's where that cut comes in. If all of a sudden LIHEAP and food stamps don't work together anymore, then you're looking at 300,000 families in the state of New York getting a lot less benefits. On average, $90 less per month. Okay, so let's go through this one more time. Democrat, Senator Debbie Stabenow, her cut is $4.5 billion. She's doing it by closing a loophole. The loophole is basically saying just because you get heat assistance doesn't mean that you're going to get an increase in your food stamps. By taking away those two programs or making sure that they don't work together anymore, people will all of a sudden get less food stamps. Even if they get LIHEAP, they're going to get less food stamps. All of a sudden, the two don't work together anymore. And so that's where her $4.5 billion cut is going to occur. It's $4.5 billion over 10 years. And so, back to Senator Gillibrand. So she's there. She's still considered a freshman senator. And a cut is a cut. And so she voted, not only she didn't vote for this bill, but she's also proposed an amendment. So now we have this farm bill that's been voted out of the Senate committee, and now it's on the floor of the Senate. This is a long process, okay? So now it's on the floor of the Senate. Now the senators are going to debate, carry on, and propose amendments and vote. Well, an amendment by Senator Gillibrand has been offered to restore those $4.5 billion in cuts that Senator Stabenow proposed. Okay, so that's what she's done. There are other senators who have also proposed amendments, and there's another amendment that I want to tell you about. Now, I know Kiana gave you a list of, amendments that you should call your senators to support and oppose. We definitely want to encourage you to let your relatives in other states who have other U.S. senators to say support Senator Gillibrand's amendment to restore this $4.5 billion in cuts. Now, there is an amendment that we need you to oppose. That amendment has been offered by a Senator Sessions, and I don't know, you know what state he represents? Sessions. Georgia, maybe? Okay, that sounds right.
It's definitely a southeast state.
It's a southeast state. Okay, so Senator Sessions, another senator, Alabama, okay, has proposed an amendment, and listen closely. So his amendment would basically say, it would require that all members of a household provide citizenship or immigrant status, even if they're not seeking benefits for themselves. Currently, as it works, if people who are eligible under the immigration status to receive benefits. You know, kids who are maybe born in this country or other people who have achieved resident status, they get benefits. But you may live in a household with someone who doesn't have that status. You may live in a household with someone who's undocumented. And the way it works now is, it doesn't matter about those people. They can get food stamps anyway, legally. But if you are eligible to get food stamps, you can get that. What he's saying is that everybody in the household has to present some form of documentation. And that if everybody is not eligible, nobody gets it.
Wow.
So that's what Senator Sessions is proposing. He's basically making it even more difficult. Again, the way it works now is that even if you have a household where some people are documented, some people are undocumented, some people are citizens, some people are not, the people who are eligible, people who are documented citizens who qualify, get the benefit, okay? Because the people who are undocumented can't really apply anyway. So we don't, you know, there's no change with their situation. Now, if you have a group of people, some documented, some undocumented, everybody in the household has to present some sort of verification of their status, immigration status. And if everybody is not eligible, nobody in the household gets it.
So that means more hungry.
So that means more, so that means exactly. So that's even less. That means that right now you're looking at, oh gosh, well, a bunch of folks. I won't even throw the numbers. You're looking at millions of Americans and people in New York, California, Florida, Chicago. I mean, I think we know the places where this issue is really going to hit home. A lot of urban areas, a lot of areas where you have people from other countries who have decided to live here, and right now their household gets some sort of food stamp benefit. Even if it's just because the child is eligible or just because one or two adults is eligible, now nobody, under his amendment, nobody in the household will get it. Okay, so I need you to be aware of that. So when you're looking at these Senate amendments, we support Senator Gillibrand's amendment because she is trying to restore these $4.5 billion heat cuts, and we oppose Sessions' amendment because it's ridiculous. And would definitely harm a number of families and children. I mean, you have 16 million children in the United States who live in homes with family members that have mixed immigration status. And so, again, if the household as a whole doesn't qualify, then those children don't get to eat either.
That's punishment.
It's exactly. It's punishment. It really is a punishment. And so, that's really what I'm wanting to just emphasize here. I mean, I'm not going to go into repeating too much of what Kiana said, but this is a very serious issue, and I think that it comes up every 5 years. The last one was passed was 2008. Before that, it was 2003. And we have gone, myself included, every 5 years, year after year, hearing about the Farm Bill, but knowing nothing about it and not knowing how much it affects our daily lives, how much it affects the cost of food, how much it affects how much we can afford to pay for food, how much it affects our benefits. And so this is not the year, this is not the time to sit down and go to sleep on the Farm Bill. We vote people in the office, we pay taxes, just like Social Security, you have every right to every benefit you get, whether it's SSI, Medicaid, Medicare, or food stamps.
Just to recap, the Farm Bill is this big, huge piece of legislation that covers everything practically. You can sort of think of it that way, it makes it easier. And within that legislation, there's different programs like food stamps. There's programs for conservation, for like water quality around agricultural lands, for not turning in like highly erodible lands, not turning them into cropland just to make a buck. There's also crop insurance, which covers like droughts and floods and things like that, but it also covers, you can buy crop insurance that will cover if the market goes sour. So I don't know how many people own a business or anything like that, but if you were selling water and you could buy insurance to say if the price of water suddenly goes down, the government will come and pay me the difference so that I don't lose all my money. That seems like a pretty sweet idea. But the crop people get that, whereas a lot of other people don't in this economy. And the crop people that get that are mostly corn, soy, the major like row crops that you think of when you think of maybe what's wrong with our food system. It's not so much the organic, small-scale farmer. It's not the fruits and vegetables that everyone's telling us we need to eat more of. So that's one area of the Farm Bill that a lot of people are working to address. Obviously, what concerns a lot of people in urban areas where there aren't a lot of farms is primarily the SNAP program. In the SNAP program, like everyone said, there's a lot of cuts that are being proposed. In the House, they're talking about a cut of maybe $33 billion, something along those lines. In the Senate, they're talking about $4.5 billion. When these two legislative bodies pass their respective bills, they're going to have to reconcile them and then send a compromise to the president. So it's really important that everyone who cares about maintaining SNAP funding for the people who need it the most, the money that puts food on little kids' tables and puts money in the pockets of small business owners. These cuts are being proposed to be much deeper in the House. So if we let them cut it in the Senate, then we're going to have an even bigger problem when we turn around to the House. We're going to be working from behind. So that's why I agree with everyone who's working with Senator Gillibrand to try to maintain funding, right? And the way that she's proposing doing that is finding savings from crop insurance. Because the way that the government works right now is that they can't they have this sort of agreement in Washington where they don't go to the war in Iraq and take money from that budget to pay for an agricultural program. If it's in the Farm Bill, they sort of have to work within the Farm Bill. So the way that Gillibrand's saying it is that we should save money is by putting income limits and putting caps on who can get subsidized money and which subsidies go to international companies and these people who are really, really rich and having their very profitable business shored up by our money. And saying you're not going to take money from the Bronx, you're not going to take it from rural America where they don't have food either, because they're poor working on these farms, migrant workers, things like that. You're going to take it from the people who have the most and don't need that sort of support from the tax dollars and things like that. So I support that. I don't want to go on and on and on. I mean, I could go on and on and on. It's really complicated.
The South Bronx Community Congress is an all-inclusive coalition of organizations, faith-based institutions, businesses, activists, residents, and workers. We unite our efforts to work towards empowerment and self-determination through policies that promote affordable housing, educational, cultural, social, youth, environmental, health, economic security, gender, racial, and civil justice. Through our unity, strategic organizing, collective participation, and decision-making, we aim to gain true community control and define our future. The South Bronx Community Congress was formed in the fall of 2009 after Aisha Santiago was killed by a stray bullet. Maxi Rivera decided to call all the organizations from the South Bronx to come together to unite so we can strategically work together. There's many organizations doing great work in the South Bronx and in the Bronx as a whole. But if we don't unite and share our resources and build strategic unity, we're not going to get the things that we want. Everyone is doing great work individually as organizations, but we're not all united. So that became the birth of the South Bronx Community Congress. We had a first conference on June the 5th in 2010. And one of the things that came out was the areas that we were going to work in. We have a lot of committees when we started. We had a housing committee, we had an education committee, jobs and economic justice committee. And one of our most newer ones is the poverty committee that we started late last year. And this poverty committee is going to encompass everything that's happening with the food stamps issue, with housing, any type of issue that relates to people in general that affect their well-being and their economic growth and development. So that's what we're here. We do monthly meetings, we do committee meetings, And we want more people to join the South Bronx Community Congress, so we can make it stronger and build and, be able to fill up buses to go to DC, to go to Albany, to go to City Hall.